Hello friends, I have just a brief few spiritual messages coming through today about the time that we're in right now. It sort of does feel like this.
At the light, turn right onto Painter's Run Road.
Right, this timeless, I should turn that off, timeless void space. But the beauty of this is that you can pick your timeline right now. So there's a lot of like strangeness of people feeling like we're in between things. This is definitely what started to ensue after the election. We had a serious switch from whatever timeline we were on to this void space, and the new is being seeded and created at this time, and there's a lot of stuff changing behind the scenes that is informing
2.3 miles, turn right onto Washington Road.
Informing how that new timeline is taking shape. And so you have to make sure not to discredit your role within that, because you are the ownership of your own life and path. And that counts for something, right? And so all of these distractions coming in to kind of curry the public favor in one way or another are always going to be designed towards fear. If you notice this, a lot of the articles that come out, even if there's not a definitive answer to like a group issue that the collective is witnessing right now, a lot of these titles through the journalism that we see are suggesting the most negative outcome. Like, does this mean this? And that's really how we see the pre-predictive programming coming in, because the suggestion of a negative situation takes root in people's minds instead of the suggestion of a positive outcome. So this time is, we're in Scorpio season still. We're going to see changes when we shift into Sagittarius season, but Scorpio is the underworld, and it's big transformation and upheaval that we cannot control. And I've also been noticing a lot of people, including myself, we're going through like these big ups and downs of things that feel very uncontrollable right now, and you have to trust. It feels very unplanned, but you have to trust that that is still somehow aligned, and you have to like bob and weave with that energy and make do with what you're presented with in your best possible form. And a good example of this, I was hit by a car 2 weeks ago. I was in a crosswalk. I was wearing a neon beanie. I had my dog on a leash. I had a reflective key fob. It was nighttime, but it was a pedestrian crosswalk, and I was like, you can go, car. You're a car. It'll take you half the time to go, clear this intersection. Then it will take me to walk across it with my blind animal. So go for it. The car wasn't going. It was creeping ahead, inching forward. I was like, go, car. Car didn't go. So I started walking, and when I was in the middle of the crosswalk, the car went, and it drove right into my body. I have a road rash on my leg, and the whole right side of my body was all bruised up, and it's healed. It's pretty much good. But at the time, it was fairly traumatic. It reminded me of how it is when I was a kid, really, and I would fall if I was skiing. And there's just like pressure, like do from all sides. That's what it felt like. I do not know what it looks like. I lost my phone, and when I found it, it was in the middle of the road, and I had to go back in the road and get it. So, that was a victory. Nobody drove over my phone. My dog was fine. My dog could have been crushed, and I was fine ultimately. But it was very strange. It was a hit and run. I had a family of 6 watching at a picnic table at the brewery outside at the corner. They were eating dinner, and they were like, oh my God, are you okay? And I was like, did you see that? It kind of felt like they did that on purpose. And they were like, yeah, that's what it looks like. So that was like sort of a disturbing thing. And I was right by this corner store where I know the people that work there. So that was like a safe place for me to duck into.
1 mile, turn right onto Washington Road.
Have a miniature panic attack, because come on, I was hit by a car. I had to have a reaction to that and like get it out of my system. And when I went into this store and I was like crying and hyperventilating, I looked in front of me and I saw this. I'll put the image on the screen. It said Lucky Sob. And to me, that was like a synchronicity. I was like, okay. And then because I was in shock and I was like sort of injured, I called my friend to drive me home, because I didn't want to walk down the sidewalk in that condition with my dog. I had about like 1.5 miles home of a walk to go. My friend came and picked me up, but she said, when you called me and described what had just happened to you, this is the song I was listening to. And it was Speeding Cars by Imogen Heap. So 2 little synchronicities surrounding that, like totally didn't have to happen, shouldn't have happened situation. And for those 2 reasons, not everybody takes those signs from the universe as seriously as I might, but I see them every day, all day. Different types of communication about
this light. Then at the next one, turn right.
Despite appearances, whatever they are, you're still in the right place at the right time. You have to trust. Like, who knows? Perhaps the function of that incident was for the driver.
Light. Turn right onto Washington Road. Then take the first left onto Abbeville Road.
I should have shut the navigation off. I'm not going to assume that it was an evil person who was like, I'm going to hit this girl. That's probably not what happened. It was probably somebody just like me who wasn't paying attention. And when I was ushering them to go forward, they were distracted. And by the time they looked up, they thought I had cleared the way, and they were being a negligent driver, and they accelerated and they hit me, and then they were afraid. And so they took off. But they're probably still thinking about it.
Right.
And
turn left onto Abbeville Road.
It probably forced
then take the first left.
Probably forced them into some form of reflection where they have to think about how careful they're being as a human and their impact on others. So from that perspective, it could have been a really transformative event for that person. And we just have to allow for like the interconnectedness of all things to
Stop sign.
to be
Turn
truly
left.
seen and witnessed.
Then take the first left onto Washington Road.
Hopefully the audio from the navigation doesn't show up in this video, because I would understand how distracting and obnoxious it is, but I'm sorry if it does.
Light. Turn left onto Washington Road. Then turn right.
So there's that. But it's this time of reclaiming the pace at which we exist. And I was thinking about something pretty cool last night. If you think about your birth chart, your natal chart, it's a series of circles. It's a series of cycles. Year after year, the planets in our solar system change at their various paces. And this scripts a very specific cycle that you and your energy and your soul's energy at the time that you came into Earth, the governing bodies of the planetary structures as they were in the sky when you were born, it creates a map that you live your life by. And so we have this opportunity to sort of exit the way that
right.
time...
Then take the first left.
We have this opportunity to change the way that time has affected our lives, so that instead of just the years passing and every year is different and we don't know what to expect, it's actually that we're living in sync with the way our own map charts it. And I know that doesn't really make sense, so let me try to say it a different way. It's like the timing of my birth chart and what that means for me at different times of the year when different planets do different things, it makes me in my energy feel different than another person who has different placements. And this is, I mean, excuse me, astrology is so much more complicated than like, I'm a Cancer. You know, we all have these very nuanced charts of meaning. And I've never, not once, gone into astrology with somebody to look at their chart a little bit closer and have them been like, that's not me. It just doesn't happen. And I've had my chart read by, this was a gift that my dad and stepmom gave me several years ago. I think it was a graduation gift in 2019 when I graduated from college. It was not a Western astrology, it was an Eastern, it was a Buddhist monk who did like a 2.5-hour reading of my entire birth chart and gave me like this literature about it, and I still have it. It's a guide to my birth chart with predictions for what the coming years might hold for me and when the best times to do certain things are, and it was incredibly interesting. But it's also showing that there are different ways to interpret astrology, and we know this from ancient cultures who had their very different relationships to the stars. And I personally hold the belief that if you have connections to the stars or you kind of observe astrology, you probably have past life connections with different civilizations that also did in that same way. So we see people having different connections, like the Mayan timekeepers, for instance, and how they tie into ET races of who influenced those civilizations back then. So anyway, we have the ability to, instead of existing with time elapsing, more so start to exist in an eternal now where you're just witnessing your personal cycles passing. And we do have these bigger, seasons. Scorpio season is sort of an underworld transformational death and rebirth for the collective, for us all. But specifically, there are certain times in the year that you might be in more of a hermit energy or you might be in more of a rebirth energy. And I've shared this before. For me, Christmas until June is like my year. It's my time. And then from June winding down is when I go back into this hermit mode. And I've decided that I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to post videos on the channel except if they're artwork, probably until the end of the year, which is, it's an awful system because I'm going to garner the attention of people who only want to look at content that's like about the painting, and then they're probably all going to unfollow me when I get back to speaking in the new year. But so be it. I have no control over that, and I'm sorry for being misleading and all over the place with my content, but it is what it is. So I am being called to go into more of a hermit energy where I only have so much free time, and it's important for me to get certain paintings out by the end of the year, and that is how I'm going to be spending my free time. Because when I record tarot reading for over an hour, so much good information comes out. It helps me process so many things and share messages, but it's still an hour of time that I could be doing something else. So anyway, that's the report for today. Just remembering that in this, it actually ties into the message that I shared from the other evening, which was very chaotic. I'm sorry about that too, but saying that you're not the response, you're the call. And we have the option right now to remember that and start populating out. In Abraham Hicks speak, they call it the rockets of desire. Everything that you put out vibrationally is a rocket of desire people don't realize that when they're in fear, but they're still emanating and sending out just as many rockets of desire, but they're coded in that fear-based way where you're sending out all of your attention. The energy of your attention is saying, well, I know what I don't want. I have evidence of it everywhere. I don't want that to happen. I don't want this to happen. And the universe doesn't speak in that specific of a language. It's just saying, oh, this is what they're focusing on. This is what they get. It's not hearing don't want. It's hearing this is where you're at. This is what you're connecting to vibrationally, whether or not you do or don't want it. And this is where we get into like, I don't know, you attract what you fear. I saw a video the other day of these like women sitting down in the streets of New York City, and they were like, I fear a rich husband. Like, oh, that's just silly. We know that, but there's something there, right? I mean, I think it was like supposed to be a funny video, but yeah, sort of taking the control back through way of disconnecting from the collective anxiety of timing and how quickly everything is moving, to attune yourself to the fact that time is very relative and the pacing of it can be intentionally synced right now to honor your specific design of how you operate. And outside of astrology, there are so many different modalities that people can like, you know, figure themselves out by these days. So well, no, actually my guys are saying no. I mean, really do look at the birth chart because of spiral ascension, because of the way that our experience of time passing is set up. The experience of time passing as a human on earth is designed so that we do repeat the same stuff, but in a new way each time. And so taking that process back by integrating it into conscious understanding is to look at, like, I can see this in my history. I tend to do the same things at different points throughout the year, but I look at what I was doing last year and I've built upon that foundation. So this is what we have the time and the opportunity to do. And it helps you realize that it's never done, it's never complete. It's a process. You're building, evolving, and growing. But oopsie, I'm getting a phone call. So I'm gonna go. I hope everybody has a great day. I hope you're doing well. Okay, bye.